Yay, we're live. Hello, hello, and welcome to this week Training Tuesday Live. We are Magnet Marketers, excited to be with you here today as we dive into the art of connections and conversations with our good friend, Judy Fox. Excited to talk about all things LinkedIn today. But before we dive into the nitty gritty and introduce our special guest, just a quick hello if we've not met before. My name is Jessica Phillips with Now Marketing Group and the Relationship Marketing System, and my awesome co-host, Mike Gingrich. He's the president of Digital Hill, the co-founder of the popular app Swaftio, its Habsite, published author extraordinaire, and just all-around great guy. How's it going, Mike? How are you?
Hey, doing well, and excited to dig into this topic here today and to meet Judy further. So I don't know, it's been a frozen tundra out where I am, and so I think Judy's backdrop kind of reminds me of that a little bit there.
My Narnia background.
Yeah, there you go. It's beautiful, beautiful.
I love it. Well, Mike, would you like to introduce our good friend? I'm going to share this out, and then we'll jump back.
All right, let's do it. Welcome, folks. And please let us know you're here. Feel free to leave a comment that says hi, that type of thing, just so we can get a feel for that. But let me dive into introducing Judy a little bit more formally. That's Judy with an I, okay? Make sure you guys get that right, okay? Judy with an I. She's hit 3 million video views in 2018 on LinkedIn, okay? So we're going to dive into that a little bit more today. She's passionate about creating opportunities and results for individuals and businesses using video and social selling strategies. She's a sought-after social media content strategist and speaker. Recently, making appearances at Video Marketing World and Vid Summit, frequent guest on marketing and entrepreneurial podcasts. All right, so she loves bringing her energy and results. So we're looking forward to that today. Welcome, Judy.
I'm so glad to be here.
All right. Okay. And now, did I miss anything in the bio that we should have mentioned here? Can you say where you're going to be speaking at next? Is there any coming?
Yes, I'm going to be speaking in New York City. I'm leaving tomorrow, and I'm going to be in New York on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. And the event is on Thursday evening at the WeWork in Grand Central Station, so right in that area. So I'm very excited.
Wonderful.
Yay. It's called Entrepreneur Business Live, and I'm speaking about content strategy. I'm definitely going to speak on LinkedIn, but I'm also going to touch on how to make some of your content that's on LinkedIn evergreen.
Got it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because you're going to create all this content, and you don't want it to go away. You want it to live on.
Yeah, that's the worst, when you spend a bunch of time on content and then it's like, it's old and it's not relevant anymore. The struggle with digital when you try to stay up to date on all things, but that evergreen content.
Make your content work for you.
Yes, exactly. Well, I love that you talk all things LinkedIn. I feel like that's a platform that kind of has ebb and wave, it's like up and hot and then it's not because some new shiny object comes out. But what has made you so passionate about LinkedIn?
The main thing that I settle back on with LinkedIn is it just continues to be this 24/7 networking site, and people are prepared to do business on there. Plain and simple. If you sum up all the platforms, there's the what you're here for different platforms. I feel like that's the one you're there for networking and business.
Yeah, and that's
business does not mean boring though.
There we go.
I love that little add into that, because I do feel like LinkedIn sometimes gets a bad rap for it, but you're right. And if you haven't been on LinkedIn in a while, just a shout out to anybody out there that maybe has a profile and hasn't been there, go check it out. I'm telling you, there's some more video on there. There's people that are super engaging. They have even the messenger pop-ups where conversations are happening. It is a pretty happening place. And I'm with you. If rubber meets the road and we're looking to really have an ROI on a social platform, and you're a B2B especially, then LinkedIn definitely needs to be one of those that are really of time spent on and it's considered in your social media strategy.
And when, big names and big people that have huge followings, huge platforms, and then they say LinkedIn is the place to be, I think you should pay attention, just my personal opinion. And then, of course, I feel like for a personal reason, LinkedIn was the right place for me to be, because I wanted to only be online at the beginning when I first was online to do business, because I wanted to just didn't want to be personal online at that time in my life because I was going through a lot. And I just was like, well, this is where I can be and not have to worry about, oh, I need to snap a picture or do stories or do all these things. I could just talk about business and value and feel comfortable.
Okay. Yeah.
That's awesome. Especially for people that can't do some of those things too, you know, like because of risk or, you know, not wanting to have their personal life out there. You know, with me, with kids and stuff, I try to kind of limit that. So it does make sense, you know, for LinkedIn especially. And I was trying to think of anyone that I know that's super active on LinkedIn that is not successful, and I could not really come up with someone. So that's something too. You know, if you think of all the people that are like super active on LinkedIn, they're really successful. So that says something for itself, I think. But, you know.
Well, and the one really nice thing about the platform is that you can have a very small following, but reach so many people beyond. And I know there's different hashtag strategies on other platforms like Instagram or, you know, obviously with YouTube, you can reach a larger audience than just your subscribers and your followers. But I feel like LinkedIn is really, really set up for that. If it's liked and commented enough by your first degree connections, it's going to push it out to second degree, to third degree. It's going to keep expanding and reaching out.
Okay.
And I've seen those posts like live on for a lot longer too. I mean, things that are engaged with a lot on Facebook, you may get like a 24-hour kind of window, and then maybe it'll resurface again over the weekend. You know, Twitter, it's like, I don't know what they said, like 12 minutes, 7 minutes sometimes it gets brought back up. But LinkedIn has a long shelf life for your content that you're putting out if it's engaged with, which is another win. Because people aren't necessarily spending a lot of time there, but when they're there, it's like more intentional, I feel like. So if your content is getting engaged with, you definitely have a better chance of being seen.
And there's definitely strategies to how to keep getting your content. I get messages, and I mean, we can go into some of this, but I get messages all the time. You literally are my news feed. Like it's the Judy Fox show. And I'm like, well, I have some strategies behind that. I mean, I don't know if we want to give it all away, but I can give it all away because somebody told me I love it. Somebody told me a great analogy about people who literally give it all away is because there's amazing restaurants and chefs. And I love this analogy because it really hit home with me when somebody said they could give away their recipes, but you can't make it as good as them. And I was like, oh, that's good. So you still go to those restaurants.
So true. I've bought the cheddar biscuit thing from Red Lobster that they sell, and it is not the same. They are missing an ingredient that they did not give us. It is not the same. But I'm with you when it comes to strategy. We get questions a lot, and it's like, okay, there's personal profiles, there's groups, there's company pages. Like, first of all, like, where do I even need to focus on LinkedIn? Maybe let's start there.
I think it depends who you. Oh, go on. Yeah, Mike, were you going to say something?
No, I want you to dig into this. I'm looking forward to that one.
I think you're right. There are the different platforms. And I think if you have all the time in the world, you should do all three. But we don't all have all the time in the world. So again, it depends on who you are and what your growth is and where you're going. So small businesses, I definitely think they need to have their company page and they need to be active there. And if their individual employees are not feeling, let's just say, they want to be out in front or sharing the company message, then that is a great space. And they're improving company pages all the time and getting them reach on the platform and updating. And there's so many more functionalities that you have available on company pages. And there's just so much going on in that area. And I would say, because I don't even have my own company page, and this is where I say,
okay,
I've gone all in on creating a personal page, and now is the time where I can start converting and pulling people over into a company page. So from my perspective, it made more sense to create a personal brand first, or a personal voice and a message on my platform that I had available that was already growing, and then convert people over. So I think it's kind of both ways. If you're an author and a speaker or a coach or a trainer, or you've got your kind of maybe 2 to 3 employees, maybe that's where you still grow your personal. But like I said, I think now I'm at a stage where I'm looking into this year having my company page so I can put a little bit more I don't like company specific, like people who are like done. They're like Judy Fox. I need to be there.
Yeah.
And then you've got your really like your like I guess people call them like your 1,000 true fans or whoever they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they want to see when you put stuff out.
Yeah,
So.
I think I like company pages too, and maybe I'll even have you kind of explain what a company page is.
Yeah.
But the reason why I like it is because some people may want to see what that company is doing or the person, but they are a little intimidated to add you and to connect with you because the rule that we've always heard, like, don't connect with people you don't know, and you want to look and see if you know them a little bit, but at least that gives them a little bit of awareness kind of set up and some context behind who you are if they've heard your name before they opt in for the connection.
So I would say two things. First, there's a way to follow people.
Mm-hmm.
People can follow me and they don't have to worry that they don't know me. They can just start following me. And what happens is once they start following me, they'll see my content. They'll be able to like and engage on my personal brand, my personal page. It's very similar to following on Facebook or Instagram. I mean, you're going to follow somebody, but they may not follow you back. But once, can you imagine if you've got your biggest people, supporters, people who are constantly either lifting you up or they're purchasing or their clients, I mean, then you become first degree connections. I mean, obviously you're going to connect at that point. But the other, like you said, with company pages, the really nice thing is when you land on a company page, that is a different landing page than the one you're going to land on your personal profile. And the company page is going to show the feed of everything you've posted. So it's very similar to the feed when you come to a Facebook company page or page, then you're going to scroll down and see all the things they've been talking about. And that's what's going to happen if you go to the LinkedIn company page. But if you go to the personal one, you're going to end up seeing, you're going to have to click a couple things to try and find my news feed, my posts, my content. So it's not as obvious.
I have just a quick follow-up question. And I know, Mike, you probably have a question as well. But a quick follow-up question for the following thing. So if somebody's following you and they can see your post, you have to make sure your posts are private or public then. So if you have it restricted to connections only, do you have to make a change so they can see your content?
I think it starts off, and there are privacy settings. I will say that. I mean, I just set mine all to public because I'm there for business and I'm like, everybody sees everything. But of course, I personally decided not to put my birthday out there just because I felt like, there's pros and cons. People put information out there that they're comfortable with. And there was other things I didn't put out there, but that's where you can control what can be seen and not seen. And at the end of the day, they also changed one of their settings recently. Before, if you downloaded all your connections, you could download all your connections to an Excel file, pretty much with almost one click. You go to the section, download all of them, and then guess what? You end up on 30,000 email subscribe lists because they scraped it and they're not supposed to.
Right.
And they do it though. I mean, there's just people doing
People do bad things with data. What? When they give access to it?
So LinkedIn now, you have to actually click yes that you want to be able to be downloaded. So everyone on the platform was switched to no. Yeah. So people actually have to go spend time to be added. And I don't know who's doing that. I wouldn't click yes personally. I don't want my email to be automatically added to anybody's list.
Yeah.
And I think if these are your connections and you're going to email somebody, you're going to go click on their name, find out who they are. And that's where you should be more strategic in who you're creating relationships. It's not just trying to immediately sell somebody. So yes, that's how the people who are showing up on the platform and succeeding, they're creating relationships. And it's almost impossible to create a relationship with every single person on the platform, but you try, and as much as you can, that makes sense.
So I haven't used that follow too much there. If I follow somebody, are they alerted that I have followed them?
I mean, if they click on their follower list, just like Instagram, if you click on your followers, you can see them.
It's not like going to get a notification.
Mm-mm.
Okay. But But it's basically, if I'm strategic to say, that's someone that I would like to get to know or something like that, I could follow them first. That gives me access on their public post to be able to comment, to engage that way.
Yes, they'll show up more likely. They'll show up in your newsfeed. Whereas before you weren't following them, so they didn't show up.
Got it.
So,
yeah.
And it'll keep them front of mind. There's also, you can control your newsfeed, which I, go back and forth, because sometimes it's nice to discover new things, and you don't want to curate your newsfeed too tight, especially somebody that's trying to either grow or just see what's out there. Like, I love seeing what people are doing and creative stuff, so I can get a gauge of, when I come on shows like this, I can shout out amazing stuff that I see happening on the platform. And I thought about that, but what I did, and this is again, back to strategy, I'm always going in there.
Yes.
I ended up finding out the people that I was following that were posting the most content, but they were posting the most content that was not originally created. And so I am trying to consume and trying to follow people who are not just pushing out news sources from other places. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to, if I was going to get news sources from other places, I wanted them to be in the market that I wanted to read, the information I wanted to fill my newsfeed. And then anyone else, if it was, maybe let's pick a topic. Maybe I'm not personally right now interested in going on LinkedIn and seeing a whole bunch of news feeds about financial. I'm trying to come up with a topic, some finance. Yep. I'm not a financial manager, so maybe I don't want to follow that. So you see what I mean? So that way I was able to curate my news feed a little better. And that way I could still read articles that might come across that I'd be like, oh, I'm so glad I saw that, but maybe not get inundated with a whole feed of financial management, for example. And I love financial management, but I don't want to read about it all day because that's not my job.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, good. No. And yeah, there's always that challenge of people sending direct messages kind of thing. And, those kind of come in there. I will say, yeah, it's irritating to me because, first glance, sometimes I'm like, who is that? And then I'll go read it and then there's some pitch there and I'm just like, kind of thing there. So I've already kind of given a explanation of how I feel about that, but maybe you want to talk a little bit more about how to use or don't use direct messages, all that kind of thing.
Oh, if I could fix how everybody's using direct messages, I would. And I'm thinking about that. I'm like, maybe you're going to run.
We'll give you money for that. I'm
going to run some type of direct message 5-day challenge or something, like how to do direct messages on LinkedIn well. Like day 1, stop pitching. Day 1, turn off your auto respond. Unless I can't even, in what circumstance that the auto respond really helps. I don't know. But okay. So with that said,
there we go.
A lot of times new contacts, when they send me, and you just know the difference, the ones that are like, they're like a hot contact. They specifically say, I just watched your last video. It was awesome, blah, 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 blah. And they say all kinds of great stuff. Of course, you want to have a great conversation and give attention to that comment, but those get lost in these other, let's just say, less than stellar direct messages that are either auto pitches or they're, hey, hi, how are you? Like, there's no context. I don't know you. And right. So what I've started to do is I've started to say a kind of a generic message. It's not automatic though. I still have to copy and paste it, but it basically says something to the degree that says, I love to connect with great people, something positive. I sandwich positives on both sides. And in the middle, I say, I only engage in the comments online until we have a specific topic to discuss in the direct messages.
Oh,
just boom. I kick people out of the DM.
Yeah.
And that way, yeah, go on.
No, I'm just saying that's smart because I know like Mike, and you're saying, oh, how do I know this person? The reason how I know the people that I get it from, it's because it's literally right after I just accepted their profile, after I've like scanned them down, and I always go through and see who they're connected with, what they're about. And I'm pretty good at reading like the ones not to accept, but every now and then somebody creeps in and I'm like, how are they connected with these other people? And dang it, I fell for the bait. Right. But,
yeah, I want to be upset at the other people that I'm connected to that are accepting that person.
Yeah,
what's wrong
what
with
was
you?
your judgment call there?
I trusted you.
I trusted you. You let me down. Yeah, but seriously, that's how it works. Because like people that go straight into the pitch with me, like immediately gone. Even if I liked your company before, no, like I literally, it's such a turn off. That I love when there's a message, even like yours, like you said, even though it's copied, whatever, I think there's nothing wrong with that because you're not asking for anything. You're setting the expectation. You're not asking for somebody to buy into you until, they've bought into you, as far as.
And by being connected, I'm going to see their content.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've realized is either they're making content or they're doing something, or they may be somebody who is a fan and they share my content frequently. And of course I'm like, well, then I will connect with you. Like there's nothing wrong here, but you get one chance. You get one chance. If that person responds and keeps going and says, where are you from? Well, you can find that on my profile. What do you do for a living? You can find that on my profile. I spent all that time working on my profile for you to ask me in the DMs what unless you say, what do you do for a living? I really want to learn more because I really want to understand how we could maybe work together. Well, then I'm going to respond. And then I love talking about earning the right to ask. Earning the right to have a conversation in the DMs is an ask. You're asking me to take time out of my schedule to talk with you. And that's that same concept of picking your brain and going to coffee. And you have to earn that right. It's just, you earn it from anybody. I don't care what amount. You could have 10 people in your community, but it just doesn't matter the size of your community online. I feel like people make assumptions based on how many followers people have. To me, I spent the last 4 years offline building a business. So people would have no idea what follower I have because I didn't do social media for 4 years.
Yeah.
So that's why I think just don't make assumptions that anybody has time.
Right. Got it. Yeah. No.
Amen to that. So when do you what are some tips for building up that right for the ask? Like, how do you know? Because of course, like you said, you're on LinkedIn for business, right? And connecting, it takes you so far, right? With engaging, but then what is that next appropriate step, or how do you know when you're there?
I think people who have shown up in the comments with not just great post, but they actually have a conversation. I read every single comment and engage back with every single comment. So if you know somebody's doing that and then you want to get in with them, then you follow their patterns and you engage. And if I'm trying to meet somebody new on the platform, I'm going to make sure to check on their content frequently, if that's once a day, every other day, and then just make sure when they post something, I like and comment. Or if you really reach a point where you've maybe done that for, let's just say, a couple weeks, maybe a month. At that point, I think you can turn around and say a DM, hey, I've been really loving your content, love, blah, 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 whatever it is. And that's it. Don't do an ask. Build up to the ask if you do have one down the road. I feel like you have to set the stage for asks, I don't know, sometimes 2 weeks to 3 months. It depends on how kind of influential and how big your ask is. If your ask is something, you sometimes don't realize even how big your ask is depending on the person. But if you get a gauge, an internal feeling that what you're about to ask for is pretty big, time commitment, energy level, putting their social capital on the line, especially if they ask you to write a review or recommendation, you're like, I never worked with you.
Yeah, I once got a message from someone and they're like, hey, I see you guys do websites and yada, yada. I just did one on my own. Would you mind going through it and letting me know how to improve it? I was like, OMG. Yes, I would. I'll love to do that. I'll send you an estimate. Like, what's your email? But I'm like, oh my goodness. Like sometimes, yeah, the ask is too big. Or, yeah, like you said, you'll get this instinct. But what I first heard you say, which I loved, is that you spend some time engaging first. You're commenting, you're making the engagement time to build those relationships, to make that rapport, to stand out in a way that someone knows, okay, you're taking this seriously and you know who I am and what I'm about. And you guys have some context to have the conversation then afterward that could lead into a conversion or a sale after. But it wasn't from just blasting stuff out and stalking profiles until you found somebody that maybe fit your persona base. It was having an engagement, interaction with someone first. I love that.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking, what if you are consuming their content frequently, and then you see somebody in their network that you looks like maybe a good connection, and you say, oh, this is a great post. So-and-so was just talking about this on their content earlier this week. And then you tag them. I mean, as long as it's relevant, you can start to have this kind of like circular engagement that if they see that, and you put their name in front of potentially, again, it's all about social capital. Pretend you put their name in front of somebody that they really consume their content. I'm trying to come up with somebody like Neil Patel. I'm just throwing it out there. And then you've put, and you said, oh, somebody tags me and says, Judy Fox just made a video 3 days ago about this, and it was on the same subject and blah, blah, blah. Well, now they've just linked me in this concept in their heads. And I'm like, well, that's a nice comment, but it's on Neil Patel's video, which is kind of cool. Like, and I think things like that go far because it feels like somebody's thinking of you. It's like that person who sends you that article, but they're not doing it in private. Now they're handing you an article and saying, hey, you might want to check this out because it's just what you were talking about.
And I love that LinkedIn has those built in now, those like starting conversations or awards or telling people they do a good job or a team member shout out. Like, even though they're kind of cheesy, if we're honest.
They're super cheesy. I got one though, and I have to say I was kind of excited.
And you still feel a little special. Like, I love it. Like Vivica Van Rosen like sent me one and tagged me in one for like public on our page, and I was like, oh my God. Like, I felt awesome, so I did it for other people. Like, I would have thought, first you read them and it's like, yeah, it's kind of cheesy, but it really does make somebody feel good to feel like you took some time out, you noticed them, and you're giving them a shout out online.
Acknowledge, shout out. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm like, if LinkedIn's listening to this, can we talk about some design? Like how to...
The sketches, I think it goes right in hand with what they're saying. It's kind of, it's like, I don't know. It's cute.
But they're a very good idea. I think they're a very good idea. And you're right. At first I looked at them and I was like, what is this? They're called kudos.
Yeah.
And you give kudos to somebody. And so what's great is if you're giving somebody an answer in the direct messages, that's how I ended up getting a kudo. Was it this week or last week? I think it was this week. Yeah. And he sent one and he put it online and said, Judy Fox, because they're shouting you out. They're continuing the conversation that you exist with now their audience, which is great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
that is good. It's good. Yeah. Any specific tips that are, different or unique to be aware of related to, like, if my focus is business to consumer versus business to business?
Business to consumer. I mean, I know some individuals who are in that space, and I'm trying to think. I think their messaging, or maybe when they are on the platform, again, I always tell people to pick their top 10, maybe future potential clients, and then pick their top 10, either the clients they've already had or they already interact with. And if it's consumers, then you're picking the individual people and you're not trying to follow company pages or engage with that from a specific business standpoint. And then your, I don't know, I'm trying to think like a coach, like an individual, like life coach or wellness, some of those spaces. Is that what you're kind of thinking of?
Yeah,
to the consumer.
And just kind of curious if there's anything distinctly different that they need to be doing.
I'm not sure if it's distinctly different, other than I think I've really benefited and can see why they create and get traction when they show the behind the scenes on their business. If they're doing coaching, I've seen them do, for example, even right now, like I could be doing kind of an Instagram live or a quick video. I could do a video right now, show that behind the scenes feeling. I think is really nice for business to consumer, because you're trying to connect on that personal level. I mean, I think businesses can do it too, but I think that with why they would feel close to you on a consumer level would be a little bit more behind the scenes, and that feeling.
Culture overall is great. Like some of the clients that we work with that are B2C, so we primarily focus on their company page, of course, right? So we're building out that company page, and then the team members, they can share content from the company page, or we're creating content that they can push out that is related to the behind the scenes or the culture, or something that is the tone that they're trying to set within their organization. Because a lot of times with the B2C, we found that it's not necessarily they're really connected with the company itself, but they're connected with an individual within the company. And this can be true for B2B. So we make sure that a lot of the representation of the team members' pages that work there are coincided with what we're pushing out on the company page, and at least show off that culture. And a lot of what we're using LinkedIn for is recruitment, really trying to show what the company is about and getting recruitment back. And then by talking about the culture, and like you stated, I think behind the scenes is great, like showing some of the behind the scenes and just what they're about, sharing out some of the blog articles, things like that is still relative to or related to their audience. It's drawing people back to the company page to potentially follow it, but they're really staying connected with a lot of the individuals maybe that they're working with directly in the company. And then like Allegheny Board, so we work with a lot of developmental disability locations. So we're showing even like the people they serve, and that's the stories that we're then creating in the blog content and the videos that then will go on their company page, and then team members can share it out.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. And then somebody recently was asking me, how do you know who the most active people are on the platform that are not just pushing out content, but really getting engagement, really getting the comments, the likes, the community is happening. And even though groups are not very, let's just say, when you show up on the platform in a group, it's not the same as when you follow a group on other platforms, you end up seeing the content. I feel like the content, you kind of lose that you're in a group. I almost don't even know what groups I'm in because I never see the content. And so the only reason I still say groups are relevant, because I feel like you can create a group and it starts to, at least this is how I use it. I'll look at groups and I'll see who's running them. And then I'll say, there's somebody who wants to build a community. No matter who that person is, I can at least put them down. So if I'm looking, let's just say I want to run an event, or I want to draw people to a local offering, I might check out who is running other types of groups. Not again because I really want to engage in that group, but because I want to check into who those people are that actually even started a group.
That's so smart.
Yeah. So that way, again, your network starts to say there's ways to find those people. Because I feel like, doesn't it always come down to who you know? Like people want to work with people they know. Rob from Thinkific shouted me out to you, Jessica, and that's how we got connected. Rob. And it came down to who we knew, it's personal connections. And that's how LinkedIn actually works. LinkedIn works like the real world.
Exactly. And you mentioned if LinkedIn is listening, we want certain things. LinkedIn, if you're listening, please bring groups back in a good way. I so miss it. Like it started off so well. And we would create groups around communities that our clients would want to connect with. So instead of building it around their name or whatever, it'd be okay, Northwest Ohio insurance professionals or whatever, right? And create a group around that to get people into it. And it was going so well. And then it died, and it's so sad.
It did die, and it is sad. And I think the other part of the functionality, the user experience, is when I was trying to comment in the groups, I was having you couldn't reply to that person. That person would have some amazing thing they were saying and offering value, and then you couldn't reply, and then they weren't a connection. And then I was like, you couldn't continue the conversation. And that's the whole point of networking. So yes, LinkedIn, groups. A lot of people, to be honest, a lot of people move any group type of functionality over to Facebook,
Mhm.
because the user experience is just much better for making sure you see the content and you can follow the conversation.
The only group I've seen doing really well, except for the college I went to, is Social Media Marketing World. They do a really good job, Social Media Examiner, but kind of their job to do that. So
It is.
yeah, they do a good job. Shout out to them with keeping that group open and active.
You have to take a lot more energy to run a group in LinkedIn. And that's why, the lowest hanging fruit, it's easy to run a group in other platforms. So that's why people do it. But yes, kudos, because to keep a group strong is incredible.
Yeah. Mike, are you hanging out in any LinkedIn groups? Have you checked out any?
No, I was thinking that the last one I was probably in was one of Social Media Marketing World's one, and that was just because they kind of really pushed that. And so, yeah, it hasn't been something that I've used actively. So I understand what you're saying about just kind of the, it's faded. The news feed is the key spot, and personal kind of interaction is kind of the key for me on that as well.
Well, and I was kind of thinking the hashtags have gotten better. So the ability to follow a hashtag and engage and even see the number of followers is improved.
Yep.
And now when you go on, you can be like, oh, 500 people are following that hashtag. And then you can also go on and see nobody's following this hashtag. Why would I use it? So
that's good. And that's good things to know that's new on LinkedIn. So as we wind it down here, I'd love to end, because you've shared a wealth of information. I had not been messing around with the followers, so I'm definitely going to take advantage of that for sure. Thank you for sharing that. But 5 big tips for succeeding in LinkedIn in 2019. If you had to give your best tips, what would those be?
Ooh, I'm on the
No pressure.
No pressure. My 5 best tips.